5 things I wish I knew about fruit trees before I ever planted my first one. Number 1 is chill hours. Had no clue what a chill hour was and how much it would affect a tree depending on where I was located. So I'm located in Georgia. I bought contender peach trees. Should not have bought those. Probably should have bought another variety of peach tree. The contender peach takes about 1,000 hours of chill hours. So basically, chill hours is how long the tree is like it's seeing less than 45-degree weather. Apparently, that makes it. I don't know all the facts and all the small details of it, but you want to have enough chill hours in your zone or in your region for a specific peach to fruit right, or a specific perennial deciduous tree to fruit right. So contender peaches take 1,000 or more. There's a lot of peaches that take 400 to 500. There's peaches for areas like Florida that takes 100, 200, 300 because they don't get as much. It's warm down here. So me living in Georgia, in Atlanta, probably getting 700 to 900 chill hours. I'm right on the cusp of not having enough chill hours for a contender peach. This year I think we might make it because it's been cold, extra cold this year. But in future years it might be a problem. So that's something I'm gonna have to remedy. I'm gonna have to sell that tree or move it to somewhere in the yard that is not taking up such prime real estate, because I planted it before I knew anything about a chill hour. So I put it in prime real estate. So if it doesn't do good, it's a plant that shouldn't be in my area that's just taking up space. So yeah, I wish I knew more about chill hours. Number 2 is pollination. Didn't know which plants pollinated what needed to be pollinated, like how peaches and apricots don't need to be pollinated by, don't need a new pollinator or a second pollinator or a second tree compared to like a plum or a pear that does. So I'd go out and buy one pear and look it up later and see that it needs a pollinator, and I didn't have 2 pollinators. But what I did figure out is that there are different types of trees, like a bradford pear, a flowering pear. I happen to have like 5 of them in my yard, so my pear tree is gonna do fine. I didn't know what that type of tree was. I was like, there ain't no fruits on it, so how is it gonna pollinate my fruit tree? But actually, they do. I think it's kind of similar to like a crab apple, even though crab apples do give you apples, but they will also pollinate um, regular apples, and also cherries. There's like choke cherries and wild cherries that'll pollinate sweet cherry. Didn't know anything about that. So yeah, I wish I knew more about pollination before I started purchasing fruit trees. Definitely. Number 3 is fruiting wood and primocane and first year wood. Basically what I'm trying to say is that there's some fruits that will grow on new growth. Like, let's say it's in the spring and there's nothing there. It's just an old wood, and then in the spring it starts to grow. There are some plants that will grow on the new growth. For example, there's something called a primocane for blackberries, which I believe I'm saying it right. It's the new growth. It'll also grow. Let me go back to this example. Peach trees. It's If you get a new peach tree with no limbs on it, it's not gonna give you any peaches, because peaches only grow on second year growth, like on last year's growth. The peach is gonna flower from last year. But there's some plants that will grow on the new growth for this year. So basically, if you cut last year's growth, all of last year's growth off a peach tree, you're not gonna get any peaches. Not gonna happen. I didn't know it. I had no clue. So I'm thinking, okay, if this thing grows during the year, I'm gonna get some peaches. And I didn't know that some trees, a lot of trees, their fruits, especially stone fruits, grow on last year's growth. So with the blackberries that I bought this year, I made sure to get Primark blackberries that's gonna grow on this year's growth, on the new growth, and then next year is gonna grow on this year's growth and next year's growth. But there's some blackberries that only grow on last year's growth, just like a lot of the stone fruits. I think all of the stone fruits, really. I'm not really sure, but that's something I still need to do a little research on. But having any kind of right now having any kind of knowledge of that is great. It's knowing what to expect, especially with fruiting buds and stuff like that. You need those from last year to get the new peaches. So you got to really be careful how you prune. Number four, number four up there is I wish I knew more about, or I wish I would have researched more about when to actually plant your trees. When is the best time to plant like bare root trees and transplant trees? Because last year I bought a lot of trees in April. This is after they have already flowered and tried to put on fruit. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm gonna get this tree. It's gonna flower and then give me fruit the first year I got it because it's a big tree. Like it was an instant orchard tree. If you've been to Ison's or Willis Orchard, you can find instant orchard trees that's gonna supposedly give you fruit really soon. But if you miss the date before it flowers, it's not gonna give you anything because of the shock. So I wish I'd have known that you need to get your fruit trees in the winter and plant them before the activity starts to come to the actual tree, because it'll grow. It's gonna get leaves, but there's no way you're gonna get fruit. I mean, if you go to Home Depot and get one that's potted, yeah, you'll get fruit. But as far as bare root, you need to get those in winter so that they can kind of. I think somebody made the perfect example of somebody sleeping. You move them somewhere, and they wake up, or like somebody sleeping on the couch. You move them to their bed, they wake up. It's like that's okay. But if you're moving them while you can't be moving them while they're awake. You're not gonna. It's not gonna be good. So yeah, I wish I had known that. I'd have been a lot better off last year than and also transplanting stuff in the summer. That goes along with it. Like I lost two trees that way. I lost my beach plum. If you go back in my videos, you'll see those. Or you see that tree. That tree is dead as a doorknob right now. And then a pear. I forgot what kind of pear it was, but I transplanted that twice in the summer and it died. So be careful. It's definitely best to just wait until winter if you want to move something. Last but not least, number five is I wish I'd have known more about deer protection. So I knew I had a problem with deer when I was growing some of my regular garden like lettuce and stuff like that out there. They just go to town on it. My watermelons, they would go to town on that, which was cool. Didn't really care as much. But the fruit trees also they'll eat those too. They'll eat the leaves off of most of them, not all of them. Like the loquat, they don't touch that because loquat is fuzzy, real tough leaves, have serrated edges. They're not really gonna be eating much of that. But like peach trees, they got soft new leaves, so and they don't have any thorns like citrus do. A lot of my citrus got thorns. They're not gonna really be eating that. But what I didn't know is that the type of protection, since I don't have a fence yet, don't have a dog, the best type of protections for that, which I found out, is going to be netting. They're not going to eat through netting. Only problem with netting is if when you have to take the net off, you're gonna destroy a lot of the tree because the tree is going to grow through the net throughout the summer, and eventually going to take that net off, and it's just going to tear leaves off your tree, limbs off your tree. That's a problem with it, but it's not going to kill the tree, so that's one thing. And two is like ag fabric, I think that's what it's called, or tree covers. They let sun in, but it's basically a cover over your tree. It also could protect against winter damage, but a deer isn't gonna eat through that. Only problem is the bees aren't gonna get through that either. So what I'm gonna try this year is net it at first when the flowers start to come. After everything gets pollinated, then denet it before all the leaves and stuff come on it, and then fabric it so that it can still get sun and still grow leaves and grow its fruit. But at the same time, deer can't get to it because it has this big old fabric thing, and they're cheap. They're like $6 on Amazon. So that's just because I don't want to get a fence and a dog just yet. Maybe next year I'll get that, and that'll get rid of the deer for sure. And because it's gonna be an outside dog, inside outside dog. So patrolling the area, uh, and also peeing on the plants. So far, it's worked for me. I'm trying to let farmer pee on the trees, and what I can say is the deer they still come around, but they don't stay long. They they're very wary in my house. I mean, there's other things that I do with the deer. I definitely go out and scare them all the time when I see them. So they definitely don't stay in my yard as much as other people's yards. So I've noticed that. So I'll keep doing that also. But I think the ag fabric thing is going to be the best. So that's 5 things that I wish I'd have known. I'm probably going to add another series of some more things I wish I'd have known because there's a lot.